Hello, Sam Houston. My name is Victoria Villanueva. I decided to use the SMORE program to to record my autobiography, and I am using Screenomatic to read it out loud. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started. I titled it Vicky's Reading Autobiography, and this is the course, Young Adult Literature 5385. Early years. I was born in Miami, Florida, daughter to two immigrant parents. My father was born, raised, and studied in Mexico and knew no English when he came to the United States. My mother was from Cuba. When she came to the United States, she was already fluent in both English and Spanish. I am the third child of four siblings. Although my father only spoke Spanish, he felt it was very important for his children to be surrounded by books written both in English and Spanish. He brought home Dr. Seuss books. My favorite title was One Fish, Two Fish. I love to hear how the words flowed from one phrase to the next, which helped me fall in love with reading. I also had a copy of Jose Marti's La Edad de Oro. I adored listening to my father and my mother read the short children's stories to us. One thing that I do remember clearly is the weather in Florida. It was always, we lived in South Florida. It was always very hot and humid, but it rained for days and days. And I used to just love it in the evenings when my parents would open up a window and read to us, and you could hear the rain in the background of their voices. Each story that they read had a moral or lesson, and we would, discuss the lessons and themes before moving on to the next title. I listened to those stories so much I almost memorized all the words. It also helped me to discover that many stories are written in order to teach us lessons, which gave reading a great importance to me in my life. When we moved to Brownsville, Texas, which is where I live now, and I began attending school here in South Texas, I was introduced to a different kind of literature. It wasn't just children's stories anymore. There were short novels like Robinson Crusoe. I also began to notice that it was very difficult for me to read, more difficult than it was for my peers. This struggle turned into an insecurity. Why was it that I could not decode the words as my friends did? It wasn't until I was in the fourth grade that my teacher, Mrs. Berryman, discovered I had dyslexia. What was dyslexia, and how did I get it? Would I ever be able to read and write as my classmates did? I was very confused, and I was very insecure. So I went home every day, and my father, though he knew no English, would sit and read with me. Si yo puedo, tú también puedes, is what my father would say. If I can learn to read, then so can you. And it was something that we learned to do together. It was a bond that we had. It was frustrating, but it was very much worth the struggle. So my first reading assignment from my teacher was Robinson Crusoe. It was the first real book that I ever finished cover to cover. I knew I had to continue to read every single day. I had to make my father proud of me. After all, if he could learn to read in English without knowing the language, then I could too. I was determined. I began going to school, to my school library, which was at Martin Elementary, where Mrs. Burr was the librarian. I would go every day before school. I checked out books with her help, like the American Girl series. I read The Boxcar Children, Island of the Blue Dolphin, and I read many, many titles from Beverly Cleary. I moved on to Charlotte's Web, A Wrinkle in Time, The Secret Garden, and eventually Anna Green Gables. It was in the sixth grade where my reading skills were so polished that I entered the GT program. In sixth grade, my teacher was Sister Monica. She was my English teacher, my literature teacher, and I decided in that year that I wanted to teach reading one day. I have a sincere desire to help all children learn to love literature. After I finished the book, Bridge to Terabithia, I had completely fallen head over heels in love with reading, and it was too late to think of anything else than to teach literature. And I included a little book cover here, La Edad de Oro by Jose Marti. Some memorable titles I have from my childhood and from my early adolescence was El Principito, which is a Spanish story I loved as a child, and I still love it now. And I have memories of my aunts reading this story to me and to my siblings in the living room floor of my grandparents' home in Florida, Anne of Green Gables. I remember my mother helping me read the story, and I loved just listening to her use all her expressions as all the expressions she had in her heart to read out loud to me and my younger sister. Bridge to Terabithia. In the 6th grade, this was the book that my teacher, Sister Monica, helped me to read, and her memory lives on whenever I turn the pages of this lovely book. And so then when I went to college, I decided I would major in English and minor in Spanish. In college, I remember my most interesting class, the class I enjoyed the most, was given by Dr. Martinez. The class title was American Realism. I loved the class. William Faulkner, Ernest Hemingway, Tennessee Williams were the major authors that we read about and we learned titles from. I minored in Spanish, which included literature classes like Literatura Infantil, which is children's literature. This class focused on children's books by authors in Latin America. I also took a class on Miguel de Cervantes and Gabriel Marquez. These classes hooked me into reading at a more sophisticated level or more sophisticated manner. Now I teach reading. I currently teach 6th grade reading, and now that I'm a middle school reading teacher, I incorporate a novel every 6 weeks. I read novels with my students, like The One and Only Ivan, Ida B, Prisoner B30, 87, The Outsiders, House of Mango Street, Esperanza Rising, and so many others. My desire to want to inspire children to read is what is driving me to accomplish my master's right now at the University of Sam Houston. And I included some book covers right here, some pictures of some book covers. This is Esperanza Rising, Ida B, The One and Only Ivan, The Outsiders, and these are from my memories of learning to read: Ramona the Pest, Ramona Forever, Beezus and Ramona, titles from Beverly Cleary. And so this basically concludes my reading autobiography, and I hope that you were able to learn a little something about where my love for reading came from, and some struggles that I've had in reading and I've had to overcome, and I'm very proud of overcoming them. And I am very anxious to continue to learn about literature and to continue to learn about books and to continue to inspire children to love to read. And I hope you enjoyed my reading autobiography presentation. Thank you.